Welcome to Echoes After Midnight, where the woods are not empty, the dark is not safe, and you are never alone. This is A Thorne in the Flesh, The Traditions We Endure, by Alexander Bainswool. The black panel van hummed south down the long Texas highway, windows rolled all the way down so the scorching desert wind could roar through the cab. Elias Thorne kept one hand on the wheel and let the hot air lash across his face the way he always did. Sam rode shotgun, the big German shepherd's head stuck straight out the open passenger window, ears flapping wildly, tongue lolling in pure joy. Between his front paws sat the bright red Kong bone he had claimed weeks earlier like it was the crown jewel of the entire road. Elias glanced over and felt the smallest tug at the corner of his mouth. Guess you like the breeze on your face as much as I do, huh, boy? It had been 3 weeks since the almost end of the world in that concrete lab on the edge of nowhere. 3 weeks since he had carved through a handful of fresh zombies and put down the super zombie scientist who thought he had solved death. The memory still made Elias shake his head. Just when I thought I had seen it all. The first week after the lab had been quiet until a skinwalker wearing the face of a park ranger tried to lead a group of campers into the woods outside Albuquerque. Elias caught it mid-shift behind a rest stop and carved the borrowed skin off its back before it could scream. He always felt that it was no coincidence he found himself at the right place and the right time to deliver needed vengeance for the innocent. Sometimes he felt like the angel of death himself. The old gods, he thought. The second week brought something worse, a pale, eyeless thing that crawled out of an old mine shaft and dragged 2 truckers into the dark. Elias and Sam tracked it by the wet coughing sounds it made and finished it with magnesium flares and the silver knife. The third week had not been a kill at all. They had been camped off a back road when a pair of armed robbers hit a small gas station. Elias had been inside buying coffee and steak for Sam. He had every intention of minding his own business until one of the punks shoved a gun in his face and ordered him to the floor. That was when the Carver woke up. 2 precise punches later and the robbers were on the ground sleeping, bleeding. The cashier had cried and called him a hero. Elias had simply paid for his coffee and walked out. He left them alive. No sense adding to the list today, he thought. They didn't kill anybody. Later that same week, a group of kids on bikes had come tearing through their campsite at dusk, laughing and shouting until they spotted Sam. The big shepherd had sat there like a gentleman while the children climbed all over him, petting and hugging and feeding him half their granola bars. Their parents had eventually rounded them up, but not before one little girl had looked up at Elias with wide eyes and said, "Your dog is the best." Elias had only nodded. Some things were worth the detour. Now the van crossed the Texas line and the radio crackled to life with the voice of a well-known internet conspiracy theorist. "Folks, I'm telling you, the Chupacabra is back and it's bigger than ever." Reports coming out of an old abandoned mining town on the outskirts of the badlands. Livestock drained dry, hitchhikers vanishing. The locals know it's real. They've been leaving goats and chickens out every week just to keep the damn thing from coming after them. This ain't no fairy tale, people. This is happening right now. Elias glanced at the GPS. The town was less than an hour away. He figured it couldn't hurt to drive through. The place was exactly as creepy as it sounded. A handful of rundown farms clung to the edge of the desert like stubborn weeds. Beyond them sat a single gas station and a dusty diner. The rest of the old mining town nothing but boarded-up shacks and rusting machinery swallowed by sand and time. Elias pulled into the gas station first, filled the tank, then headed across to the diner with Sam at heel. The big shepherd had taken to walking beside him like a support dog now, and Elias had learned it was easier not to argue with the role. A man smoking outside the diner gave Sam an appreciative nod. "Fine-looking dog you got there, mister." Inside, the place was nearly empty. A tired waitress stood behind the counter and one lone patron sat at a booth near the window. Elias slid into a seat and ordered black coffee for himself and a rare steak for Sam. The waitress brought the food quickly, but as she walked away, Elias heard the low whispering between her and the patron. The man was a local farmer. He was scared. Hitchhikers had started disappearing near the old mine, and he was worried the weekly sacrifices of goats and chickens were no longer enough to keep the thing away. Elias stood, coffee in hand, and crossed to their booth. "I heard you talking. I can help." The farmer looked up, surprised. The waitress froze mid-pour on a coffee refill for the old farmer, eyes locked on Elias. Elias gave a small shrug. "Chupacabra. Goat sucker. I know how that sounds. but I just stopped a zombie apocalypse 3 weeks ago, so I'm just about out of surprise at this point." The farmer's eyes widened, but he did not laugh. He simply nodded. "Come out to the farm tonight. We'll tell you what we know." They drove the short distance together. The farm was modest, a few weathered buildings and a corral where the weekly sacrifices were kept. The farmer's wife and their twin daughters, both 36, dark-haired and strong from years of ranch work, met them at the door. All three women immediately fell in love with Sam. The dog soaked up the attention, tail wagging, letting the daughter scratch behind his ears while the wife brought out cold sweet tea. That night they sat around a low fire behind the house. The stars were thick overhead. The farmer poked the logs and spoke quietly. "Chupacabra's been part of these border stories for decades. Started down in Puerto Rico, they say. Spiny-backed, red eyes, sucks the blood right out of livestock and leaves them dry as bone. Some folks claim it's a demon. Others say it's an escaped lab experiment from the old days. Whatever it is, it's real. As big as a small brown bear now. We leave a goat or two every Sunday night. Keeps it from coming after us. But lately the hitchhikers. The missing. I think it's getting bolder." The wife and daughters listened in silence, faces tight with worry. When the farmer and his wife finally went inside to bed, the twins stayed by the fire. They were scared, but they kept petting Sam and thanking Elias for coming. "We really hope you can help," one of them said softly. Sam, too. "He makes it feel safer just being here." Nothing happened the first night. The fire burned low and the desert stayed quiet. The next day, Elias scouted the old mine trails with Sam. He found the tracks. Massive. 3-toed prints pressed deep into the sand, the kind of prints no coyote or mountain lion could make. Blood spatters on the rocks. The thing was real. That night they camped again by the fire. The farmer's family had gone to bed early, leaving Elias and Sam alone under the stars. The attack came just after midnight. The Chupacabra exploded out of the darkness like a nightmare given fur and muscle. It was the size of a small brown bear, spine lined with sharp quills, eyes glowing red, jaws wide and dripping. It went straight for Sam. Elias was already moving. The bone-handled knife flashed. Sam lunged with a snarl. The fight was brutal and fast. The creature was stronger than anything its size had a right to be, slashing with claws and trying to sink fangs into the dog. Sam took a bad hit to the hind leg and yelped, limping hard. Elias roared and drove the silver blade deep into the Chupacabra's side. Black blood sprayed. The thing howled and turned on him, but Sam, limping or not, clamped onto its rear leg and held on long enough for Elias to ram the knife up under the ribs and twist. The Chupacabra convulsed once, then collapsed in a heap of quills and leaking blood. Elias dropped to his knees beside Sam. The dog was bleeding, limping badly, eyes pained, but still trusting. "Easy, boy. I've got you." The farmer and his family came running at the noise. They helped carry Sam inside. One of the twin daughters was a vet. She cleaned and stitched the wound while Elias paced the porch like a caged animal. The family begged him to stay the night. The daughters insisted, their voices soft and full of something more than gratitude. "Stay," one of them whispered. "Let us thank you properly. Your dog needs rest. You do too." Elias normally would have declined, but Sam was hurt, and because one of the sisters was a vet, he stayed. The next night, the twins camped out with him by the fire again. They cooked thick steaks and fresh tortillas, laughed quietly under the stars, and made sure Sam had the softest blanket and the red Kong bone close by. They gave Elias the kind of proper thanks that left no doubt what they meant. He let himself feel it for one night. Warmth, human connection, the kind of thing he almost never allowed. By morning, Sam was already moving better. The limp was gone. The dog trotted around the yard like nothing had happened, Kong bone proudly in his mouth. Elias watched him and wondered if Sam had somehow planned the whole thing, just to force his human to take one single night off the hunt. The farmer and his family stood by the van when it was time to leave. The daughters hugged Sam hard. The wife pressed a bag of fresh food into Elias's hands. The farmer shook his hand and said simply, "Thank you." Elias looked at all of them, then at Sam already waiting in the passenger seat, head already hanging out the window. "We never stay anywhere," he said quietly. "Never did. The road's cheaper, cleaner, and there's always another monster waiting." He climbed in. Sam rested his head on the console, Kong bone between his paws, eyes alert and content. The van rolled south again, windows down, hot Texas wind roaring through the cab. On the radio farther down the highway, they were already talking about another string of animal attacks near the old mines. Elias smiled that small, cold smile and just kept driving. The hunt never ended. It only grew thirstier. And now it had a tale of a chupacabra and still a dog riding shotgun with his head in the wind. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe for more echoes after midnight.